You had mentioned
Chuck
you had
Berry.
worked with Chuck Berry for 30 plus years.
Yes.
Chuck Berry, Johnny Be Good. You know, what else?
Who else or what else?
Both. What were your favorite songs from Chuck Berry? What'd you play with him, and what other artists did?
I played all his hits with him. Johnny Be Good, Roll Over Beethoven, Sweet Little 16, Nadine, Maybelline, Carol, School Days, all of them.
Amazing.
Too Much Monkey Business.
Amazing.
But, Johnny Be Good is my favorite song from Chuck. And it's my favorite song of all time. Also like Little Richard's, I like anything he did. But my favorite from Little Richard would be Lucille, Good Golly, Miss Molly. I love Jailhouse Rock by Elvis. Hard-Headed Woman.
When you saw the scene, you've seen, I assume, Back to the Future when Michael J. Fox did Johnny Be Good.
Sure.
You know, I was a kid when that movie came out. That melted me. I love that. Anytime that movie comes on, I mean, did you see that scene? That must have, like, what did that do to you when Michael J. Fox did that?
It was a great scene. It was a great, and it's the scene that everybody remembers from that movie.
Of course.
You know?
Of course.
Yeah.
Let me ask you your thoughts.
And that's the power of that Chuck Berry rock and roll.
Of course.
You know, it only took up a couple minutes in the movie, but it is the most memorable scene of the movie. And the whole movie was great, but that is the scene that sticks out. Just like Pulp Fiction, remember that movie?
Of course.
John Travolta. Yeah, exactly. And what song were they playing?
That was Chuck Berry.
Again, Chuck Berry. You never can tell. C'est la vie. You never can
C'est la, exactly.
It's that Chuck Berry music that jumps out at you.
Well, you had once said that Chuck Berry perhaps was the greatest civil rights hero in America. I want to say the greatest, but was a civil rights hero because of him, white people or black people, white kids, black kids had danced together for the first time in American history. Is that right?
Because of the music he created. Yes.
Right.
And the other artists played it as well, but they would not be playing it had it not been for his creating it.
Of course.
Elvis, Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, Bill Haley and the Comets, Carl Perkins, Buddy Holly, all these people, as well as Little Richard, Bo Diddley, Fats Domino, on and on. Chuck created that music. He took Boogie Woogie and put it, and before rock and roll, things swung.
Mm-hmm. Swing music, yeah.
That was the groove for swing.
Right.
Rock and roll's boom, boom, bop, boom, boom, bop, boom, boom, bop. That backbeat, right?
You got me moving over here, Daryl.
Yeah. So he took that swing music,
mm-hmm.
And the blues and country, and put a backbeat on it, that boogie woogie with a backbeat.
Right.
That became rock and roll.
In Back to the Future, there's a scene when Michael J. Fox is playing, and I forget the guy's name, but he says, "You know that new sound you're looking for? Yeah. Well, get a listen to this." Boom, and he puts it, and the guy, "Oh wow, that's what that new sound was." That's what was. Exactly. And Michael J. Fox said, "You might not be ready for this, but your kids are gonna love it."
Right, exactly. It's prophetic, right?
Right.
And just like Chuck Berry wrote a song called "Rock and Roll Music,"
mm-hmm.
and everybody's covered.
Everybody likes that rock and roll music.
Right.
Any old time you choose it.
Use it.
Yeah.
It's got a what? It's got a backbeat. You can't lose it.
You got a backbeat. Okay, all right. I just failed that test, but I know the song.
Yeah.
Respect.
So listen to rock and roll music, Chuck Berry.
I love that.
It's got a backbeat. You can't lose.
You got a backbeat.
That's what he's talking about. That's the backbeat.
Amazing. Last question on music before we move on to more serious topics. My favorite artist, I love all sorts of music. I love Sinatra. I love hip hop today. Sure. I love Hall & Oates. I love, Johnny B. Good, all that. What are your thoughts on Jackie Wilson?
Oh, man, one of the greatest singers of all time. Elvis loved him. And in fact, in Las Vegas, he was known as the Black Elvis, even though he was doing that before Elvis.
Right. It's always, So I learned about Jackie Wilson. I love old movies. I learned about Jackie Wilson. And for our audience that doesn't know who he is, there was a famous scene in Coming to America, Eddie Murphy, where he's shouting from the rooftops, "To be loved! To be loved! Oh, what a feeling to be loved." And I remember I said, who is that singer? Who is that person? I found out it was Jackie Wilson. And for some reason, he's not as famous as Elvis, as Chuck Berry, as James Brown. Listen, why is that? Because he has so many amazing songs.
It's not for some reason. There's a reason why.
Tell me why.
The reason is racism. And, you only let a few black people slip through the cracks. You don't want too many of them. Jackie Wilson was a good-looking black guy.
Yep.
He had, women went crazy over him.
Right.
And white women were not immune to that. What's good looking is good looking. What sounds good, regardless of color. And that was a big concern back then. Little Richard got away with it because Little Richard was gay. So people were not, so worried about their women going after, this gay man. All right. But you think about it like this also. When I was coming up, there were no black idols on TV. Who did I have to relate to? I had to relate to little Opie Taylor in Mayberry, Andy Griffith's show. And Opie didn't have any black friends. I watched Leave It to Beaver, Little Beaver Cleaver and Wally Cleaver. They didn't have any black friends. I watched Lost in Space, Space Family Robinson with their crazy robot. They went all over the universe, even went to other universes.
And no black people.
No black people. They saw green people.
Ridiculous.
With forearms.
Freaking ridiculous.
They saw everybody.
They're seeing aliens, but not black people. You know how freaking absurd that is?
By today's standards, sure.
Yes.
But that's what I had to grow up with. All right. So then, the first, and there were no black superheroes. That's why it's such a big thing that this person who just died.
Black Panther, of course. Chadwick Boseman, of course.
Exactly,
Yes.
So, who were my heroes back then? Batman, Superman, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, all these people. But what were they? They all were white, right? So you had a couple, most shows that featured any black people, they were in a subservient role as a butler,
the maid, the butler,
a chauffeur, a pimp, a drug dealer in the movies or whatever. But then, when we got some better roles, they were never top. They're always secondary. So like say I Spy with Bill Cosby and Robert Culp. They were partners in that TV series, but one was not higher than the other. Then we saw Lieutenant Uhura in the original Star Trek with William Shatner, and that was the first interracial kiss on TV.
What year was that?
I think 1969.
Nice. So all throughout the 60s, there's nothing like that going on.
Exactly.
So into the 70s. When did Shaft come out?
Shaft came out, I think, maybe in the late 70s.
Late 70s? Okay.
Maybe mid to late 70s.
So who was the first, you said there was only white superheroes. Who was the first black person you saw on TV? You're like, all right, I like that guy or gal.
Yeah, okay. Well, he was a hero. He wasn't a superhero with superpowers, but he was a badass. That was Mr. T.
Mr. T?
And, yeah.
Of course, Mr. T. But when was that?
That was on the A-Team. What was that?
But that was not until the early 80s, though, right?
Exactly.
It took up until the early 80s until a superhero badass dude showed up on the scene, Mr. T.
Right. Exactly. And what did they pick for that? They picked the ugliest black guy they could find.
Mr. T.
Yeah.
Gold chains galore.
Yeah. They're not, and his mohawk.
Of course.
They're not going to put a Denzel Washington or a Billy D. Williams or some, good-looking black guy up there because, again, that would attract, the females. And so, what female in her right mind is going to be attracted to Mr. T?
Mr. T is not going to be happy when he sees this, Daryl. Let me tell you something.